Well, a very, very good evening to one and all. Welcome, welcome, my friends, to another sports quiz with the stars brought to you by the Sporting Club. And tonight we have a very special guest, the cheeky chappie of Formula One. He raced for no less than, well, let's go through them: Benetton, Tyrrell, Lotus, Ligier, Sauber, Stewart, and Jaguar Formula One teams. He raced in 161 Grand Prix. He achieved 7 podiums. He won 3 Grand Prix. He came 4th in the 1995 World Championships, and he won in 1991 the famous 24-hour Le Mans race. So he really is a high achiever. Goes along with all our other stars we've had with our sports quizzes over the weeks. Don't forget, in a fortnight's time, we have another great guest as well, the greatest British Winter Olympian of all time. Nobody else has ever won 2 Olympic gold medals, but this young lady has, Lizzie Yarnold. Lizzie Yarnold is our guest for the sports quiz in 2 weeks' time. But tonight, I'm delighted to say that our guest is none other than Mr. Johnny Herbert. And as always, the moment of truth, we're rather hoping, well, we know that Johnny's there because he's already checked in. All we now need to see is his angelic little face to appear on the screen so that we can get cracking with the quiz. Oh, I see some action. I see some action. Johnny, can you hear me? Can you see me?
Classic.
Brilliant.
This is not working.
Can you hear me?
It should be working. No.
Well, how did he?
I've got you.
Right. Can you hear me now?
I can get you. I've got to try and work out how I get you in my ears.
Well, I've got you. I can hear you. I can see you.
I'll take out the earpods. Perfect.
Now, can you hear me? Can you see me?
I've got you and I can see you.
Fantastic. Isn't this live streaming wonderful? Now, Johnny, either your chair's too low or you're too small. But either way, all we can see is a head and a lot of space above you. Can you go up? Perfect. You have shoulders as well.
I do indeed. Yes, I do have legs down there as well.
Brilliant. I just thought it was a talking head there for a moment. So, Johnny, thanks so much for joining us. I've just given you a glowing intro. I'm going to quickly repeat: 161 Grand Prix, 7 podiums, 3 wins, 4th in the 95 World Championships, 1991 Le Mans winner, Benetton, Tyrrell, Lotus, Ligier, Sauber, Stewart, Jaguar. Not bad, is it? It's all right.
Not bad at all. No, it's been okay. Yeah, I can't complain too much, but I think in the end of the day, I've been very lucky in life to do something I totally love and still being involved with it still today.
Happy days. What did Confucius say? It was before your time. He said, if you enjoy your job, you never do a day's work in your life.
Exactly, yes.
There we go. Clever bloke, Confucius. So, Johnny, we're going to have a little chat about your life and times during the quiz, and at half time, we'll have a little bit more as well. Before we get started with the quiz, quick question. We are highlighting tonight your chosen charity, which is Kidney Research UK. Why is that?
Well, it goes back to my daughter when she was born. She had a bit of a reflux issue down below and it damaged her kidney. And because of that, I've always tried to support the various kidney charities, and Kidney Research UK is the one that I've chosen tonight. So it's for a good
Fantastic. And she's okay now?
Yeah, she's good. It was damaged. It shrunk a little bit. But if she loses the other one, she can still survive on that one. So. Perfect.
All right. Brilliant. Right. So if you're ready, I'm ready. More importantly, hopefully everybody else is ready at home as well, with your pencil. Do you remember pencils and bits of paper? That's what people used to do. But if you've got something fancier, that's fine. There we go. So John and I are going to throw alternate questions at you as per usual. I'll start. There's a few F1 questions which I thought only fair that Johnny should ask, 1 or 2 about himself. We'll ask 10 questions. We'll give you 10 answers. We'll have a little break whilst Johnny and I have a little chat, and then we'll get into the second half. It's 20 questions in total, 40 marks, all for a bit of fun. Don't cheat. What's the point? Just do it. Just do it for the head of it. Right, Johnny, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Great. The lights are all on, about to go off. You're revving up. Okay. And as Murray Walker used to say, go, go, go. Right, my turn. Question one. Football. Mikel Arteta is looking like he's beginning to make things happen at Arsenal. He played for 3 British clubs. Everton and Arsenal are 2 of them. Can you name the third one? And if you can, it's worth 1 point. Over to you, Johnny.
Okay. My question is, we've got a Finnish world champion possibly this year, but there's been 2 Finnish world champions over the years. Name 2 of them. They're worth 2 points.
And just to clear up any issue, because actually Johnny raised this with me, 100% Finns. No 50% Finns.
There is a
100%
half. Yeah, there is a half of one in there. Yes.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm an eighth Hungarian, but I don't bang on about it.
No.
Right. Question 3 is my turn, and it's the Olympics. You think you should know this, but I'd be surprised probably if you do, or some of you do. The next Olympics, as you know, were this year. They've been postponed for a year to 2021. Hopefully the 2024 Olympics won't have any issues. But can you name where they are going to be staged? Where are the 2024 Olympics? And that's worth 1 point. Question 4, Johnny, that's yours.
And that's right, it's golf, a game that I absolutely hate and I've given up on. But, right, the Open will be staged at St Andrews in 2022. Can you name the famous golfer? The 10th hole is named after on the old course. And do you know the name of the famous 17th hole? And that's worth 2 points.
And you know, it's funny you should say that, because I was going to follow up you asking that question with, now you love golf, don't you? Because I've seen you at a couple of pro-ams. I've bumped into you hacking away, and you've turned around and said you hate it.
Yes, well, you just mentioned it, hacking. That seems to be all I ever do. It seems to be most of the time sort of trying to get myself in a bush and then out of a bush. So my feet, because of the accident I had many, many years ago, that started to probably take its toll. So I can't actually do more than 9 holes. So I think, well, if I can't do more than 9, what's the point?
The thing about golf, probably more than most sports actually, is you got to play quite a lot to be any good, haven't you? And if you're not any good, it's all right if you're hacking around some public course, but I'm sure you get invited, and I get invited to sort of pro-ams or quite highbrow corporate events, and they just look at you as if you're a clown.
Yes, and that's something that I don't enjoy, I must admit. That's why I've given it up, but I haven't actually found anything to replace it with at the moment. So I might need a bit of a hand on that one. Okay,
all right, brilliant. My turn for question 5. It's a football question. And again, this is something you'd think people would know, but maybe not. So one of the biggest clubs in the world, one of the most famous clubs in the world, of course, is Manchester United. But do you know the name of Manchester United before it became Manchester United? The club actually had another name. If you know that, that's worth 1 point. Question 6, Johnny, that's yours.
Right. Well, this one will be an interesting one if everyone can get this one. So F1, 4 venues have staged a British Grand Prix in England. Silverstone is 1. Can you name the other 3? And that's worth 3 points. This is going to be a difficult one. And I wish I'd driven up one of those, because I think it would have been an absolutely stunning race to go at. That's hopefully something that people will be able to get right.
Yeah. I mean, we'll just give a little clue, which is
I crashed. There's one.
Well, not really. That hardly knocks down the choice, does it, Johnny, to be fair?
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I was going to say, you would associate another sport with one of these venues. Fair comment?
Yeah, very fair comment. Yes.
Yeah. All right, brilliant.
That's an oldie.
Okay, my turn now. Question 7, and it's a boxing question. 4 British boxers have won Olympic gold from the London Olympics in 2012 onwards. So in other words, in the last 2 Olympics. Can you name 3 of those 4? One of them is one of them's a really easy one. The others you may well know. If you can name 3 out of 4, that's worth 3 points. Are you a boxing fan?
Yes, I do. I do like my boxing, to be perfectly frank. So at the moment, heavyweights, we've got a lot of those doing rather well, haven't we, at the moment? So
Yeah. Who are you? Do you have any heroes when you were younger? Anybody you sort of love to watch?
I think it's the classic one. Obviously, growing up in the 70s, is Muhammad Ali, isn't it? I think that's the
Yeah.
one that always stands out for me. So still does today.
Yeah. Just as a boxer, or also as a personality and a character?
Just, I think it's the characters, the personality, and then it was the clever way he went about his boxing as well. So I can sort of relate to what he was doing in the ring to a little bit of what he do in a race car at the same time. Got to use that sometimes, and he used that very, very powerfully.
Do you feel, and you can answer this a lot better than I can, when you were racing and just before you were racing as well, there seemed to be loads of personalities in Formula One, and then Formula One's got, it's much more money in it. The sponsors are bigger, it's more polished. Obviously, social media. I don't know whether, for example, James Hunt would have lasted very long today because everybody's got a camera, haven't they, etc. Yeah. But you kind of feel as if F1 maybe doesn't quite have the personalities that it used to have. Is that fair comment or not?
Well, it's a fair comment, I think, over the last sort of decade in some respect, Ian. But I think we have a nice young bunch that are really going to sort of change that, because I think someone like Max Verstappen, someone like Lando Norris and George Russell, Alex Albon as well, and Carlos Sainz, they're really good, fun guys to be around with. We only have to look at what you see with Lando Norris. He's giggly and laughing, and that is a personality that you want to see. So actually, there are these sort of new young guys that seem to have a very different mindset, but it's a fun mindset. And I think that's very important in sport. So
yeah, you rightly or wrongly, you can't behave like James Hunt anymore. You'd soon get bombed out of the team, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you certainly would. No, it's not a corporate way, is it? Not very corporate. Right. My turn, is it? No, it's your turn. I beg your pardon. Question 8. Yes. Well, it's another game I hate as well, tennis. Never been any good at that one. So here we go. How many Grand Slam semi-finals did Tim Henman reach? Apart from Wimbledon, name the other 2 tournaments he achieved this feat.
There we go. Tim, do you know Tim? Have you come across Tim in your travels?
Yes, I have. Nice guy, very easy to talk to. Again, it's something that I think with a sportsman, you ought to have that ability to sort of, have a conversation, not just about your sport, but other sports and sort of what's happening in the world. And Tim's very much that way inclined. So it was really nice meeting him. With Pete Sampras, I know he was very close with as well when he was in his playing days. So good old Tim and good old Pete.
Well, Tim's timing wasn't great, was it? Because he saw the second half of Sampras's career, and then as soon as he got rid of Sampras, somebody called Federer arrives. So poor old Tim never got a look in, really, did he? With those 2.
That's always the way it goes. Anyway, that's worth 3 points.
Brilliant. Okay, my turn. Question 9. It's a football question. So Liverpool have won the title, and Player of the Year. Some might say it's their captain Jordan Henderson. Others, I heard, who was it? I think it was Jamie Carragher was saying for him it's Sadio Mane. What a signing he was for Liverpool. The question I'm asking you, the answer I want to know is, where does he come from? Which country does Sadio Mane come from? And that's worth 1 point. Do you have a football team, Johnny?
Chelsea.
Really? All your life?
Yes, always has been. I think the blue is the colour. Football is the game. That brought me to Chelsea's way, I think.
We're all together and winning is our aim.
Well, exactly, yes. So it was back in the days of Peter Osgood. So
yeah.
Sort of in the 70s, and John Webb. I think John Webb was there, yes. So, yeah, long way back.
David Webb.
David
Charlie.
Webb.
Yeah. Alan Hudson, Peter Bonetti, all that lot, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. We went through many, many years, and I mean many years, of achieving nothing.
Yeah.
It was lovely when eventually the winning ways came back again. So, stuck with them through thick and thin.
Yeah. No, well, that's good. That's good. You're not one of these, if you excuse the pun, Johnny come latelys.
Hey, yeah, and they're doing well at the moment, so I'm not doing too bad anyway.
All right, brilliant. And it's your turn for question 10.
Yeah, check question 10. Right, F1, track names. Can you name the 3 famous track names for the Portuguese, Brazilian, and San Marino GP, and that's worth 3 points.
Yeah, they're all names that trip off the tongue. So we're just going to give everybody a couple of minutes just to double check their questions, go back on a couple if they're still missing one or two. There, it gives me an opportunity just whilst we're waiting to ask you about this season. We've only had one race so far, but I tell you what, interesting results.
Yeah, really good. And there was always a chance that the winning driver wasn't actually going to win that race with this sort of the sensor problems that they were having, and now they've got to try and sort out what they do. And the problem is because of the curbs, there's a resonance that sets off not the damaging the suspension in any way, not damaging the monocoque, not damaging the engine, but it's the sensor that reads everything that's going on with the gearbox, and the resonance that was in there was really critical for them. So it's just the way the curbs are. But actually, they've been there before, so it's quite a surprise. But why does it do it? Well, it's because of the way the tyre responds to that curb and that vibration that it gets. So that was great. Shame we didn't see Max or when he did that great call in qualifying to go for those medium tyres. And then he stopped, obviously, early in the race. And then Alex Albon, another really good call from Red Bull after the last safety car, I think it was, where he went onto those soft tyres and then he had that clash with Lewis Hamilton. So yeah, it was a good start, I think, to the season, because it wasn't sort of a given that Valtteri Bottas was going to win on a track that he had won before and always seems to go well on.
And I would suggest that the shortened season, the smaller number of races, and it's all relative. I mean, there were when you were racing this amount of races. You weren't doing training a season. No. It might make it a lot more exciting, because hopefully there won't be somebody, normally Lewis, who's run away with it with 6 races to go.
No, and I think because we're doing things slightly different, where Austria, it's round 1 and round 2. This is that sort of weird situation that a particular driver, and that seems to be Valtteri Bottas at the moment, historically always goes well at. So if he can capitalise on winning race 1, done that, and he can do that with race 2, that really puts him in a strong position before we go to Hungary. So I think all those dynamics are actually going to make it very interesting, because we've got a double header as well at Silverstone, which would be great to see that. And I think it's just the whole dynamic's going to be a little bit different. I really hope we have a challenge from someone like Red Bull. Ferrari look a little bit out of sorts at the moment, but I think Red Bull could do well at certain tracks. Austria, they didn't look that bad, but Hungary, they have done well in the past. So there is always a bit of a twist, hopefully, that might come our way.
And Lewis knows he's got to be on his mettle, hasn't he? Because not only has he got Bottas, who's clearly going to be strong, but in Verstappen and Leclerc, and maybe even Lando Norris, you've got the next generation. But the next generation, they're today's generation.
Absolutely. And wasn't it great? McLaren, Lando Norris, brilliant seeing them get that result after the difficulties they've had sort of over the winter and the early part of this year financially. So that was a great result for them. Charles Leclerc, you mentioned, an absolute star, got a great result out of the race at the weekend, that second place. But the Ferrari, as I said, is way off the pace at the present time. They bring a new car, I think it is, on new updates in Hungary. So hopefully they're going to make a difference to their performances. But it's just these young guys like Max that just make it exciting to watch, because I think that's really what we want, is these guys to go wheel to wheel, and it'd be the best man win. So it's nice that young generation is now really going for the sort of experienced drivers. And there's even rumours of Fernando Alonso coming back to join Renault next season. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that young driver. Right, let's do these answers, because everybody's poised. So I'll start. Question 1 was the football question. Mikel Arteta, Arsenal manager, has played for 3 British clubs: Everton, Arsenal. Who was the third club? I did say British, and that's because the third club was Rangers, Glasgow Rangers. So that's worth 1 point. Question 2.
Okay, yeah. Well, that was the 2 Finns who have won the F1 World Championship. Keke Rosberg, of course, and Mika Hakkinen, the great Mika Hakkinen.
Yeah. Was he ever your teammate, Mika, at Benetton?
No, at Lotus. We did 2.
At Lotus?
Yeah, in 1991, 92. Brilliant character. Really has a typical Finnish way, actually. They do like the older amber nectar, but they're very, very focused. And when they get in a race car, considering how small a population it is in Finland, it's amazing the success they've had in F1, but more so probably in rallying as well.
Just very quickly in that, seeing that you brought it up, never mind Mika, what about Kimi? Kimi comes across as monosyllabic, monotone, not a lot going for him. That's because you don't hang out with him. You hang out with him, especially in the winter.
Yeah.
He's bonkers, isn't he?
Yes. What you see on TV is just the complete opposite of what you see sort of behind, when you're with him privately. But that's the lovely thing, because for whatever reason, the man that doesn't talk is the most popular man in the paddock. And it's just brilliant that dynamic seems to work. But then you see, and it's brilliant actually, because he never used to do any of this social media stuff at all. Now with his young family, we're seeing karting with his youngster the other day. I've seen him do somersaults into a swimming pool and all the fun stuff that Kimi loves to do. We've been very lucky at Sky, where we've asked drivers to do the lawnmower race that we did at Silverstone. He was the only one who wanted to do it because it was something away from F1 and the paddock. And I think that's what I think everybody loves about him.
Yeah, and you get the impression all the drivers love him as well. You get the impression one of the reasons why the drivers love Kimi Räikkönen so much is that he really genuinely, I can't say it because we're doing a show, but it doesn't give a.
No, he doesn't. And that's good as well, because I think that's something that the respect comes from the drivers. And then when it's respect from the drivers, that spreads further afield to the fans watching. Yeah,
brilliant. Okay, right. My turn to answer question 3. We'll give the answers. Obviously, I can answer it because I set the quiz. The Olympics, where are the 2024 Olympic Games? This is worth 1 point because it is in Paris, of course. Okay, question 4.
Yeah, well, I wanted to do that sort of half Finn, who's won a world championship as
well.
Yeah. Son of Keke Rosberg, Nico Rosberg, but he's German.
Yeah, of course. Okay, question 4, your golf one.
Yeah, the golf one, yeah. So the Open stage at St Andrews 2022, named the famous golfer, the 10th hole is named after, and the old course, and the name of the famous 17th hole, and that's worth 2 points. And the first one is Bobby Jones, of course. And the name of the famous 17th hole, Road Hole.
Road Hole.
Of course.
And for all you golfers out there, after the road hole, you then do the little cross across the Swilcan Bridge. Have your photograph taken with the St Andrews Clubhouse in the back? I've seen Japanese tourists arrive at St Andrews and fall to their knees in tears because they finally made it to St Andrews.
Yeah.
Right, my turn. Question 5, the football question. What's the former name of Manchester United? Newton Heath. They used to be called Newton Heath. Used to play in green and yellow a few years ago. Mind you.
I would imagine.
Johnny, question 6, F1 question.
Okay, yeah, so the 4 venues that have staged the British Grand Prix, Silverstone being one of those. The 3 others is Brands Hatch, which is where I had my crash. And then the one you said where there is a sort of another sport, which is horses. And that's Aintree, which is the British Grand Prix. And the last one is Donington Park, which is the European Grand Prix. In 19.
There we go. I should say, by the way, just in case you're confused, they didn't stage the Aintree Grand Prix at the Aintree Racecourse.
No, it was around it.
Same area of Liverpool. Okay, question 7 was mine. Boxing. 4 Brits have won Olympic gold at the 2012 and 2016 Olympics. Can you name 3 of those 4? I'd said one of them is really easy. Anthony Joshua, 2012. Luke Campbell also is another one you may not recall. James De Gale. And of course, the other one, the smiling assassin, Nicola Adams. So any 3 of those 4. And as Richard Osman says on Pointless, if you got those at home, very well done.
Indeed, yes. I would never have got most of those, I think. Anthony Joshua only got, I think that's it. Right. And my next one was tennis, wasn't it? Yes. So how many Grand Slam semi-finals did Tim Henman reach, apart from Wimbledon? Name the other 2 tournaments he achieved this feat. US Open and French Open. So that's the 3 points.
And how many semis did he play in?
So what have I got here? Let's just work out. How many semi-finals? Oh, 6.
Yes, there we go.
Sorry, yes. 6 euros.
four Wimbledons and the US Open and the French Open. But he's okay. I remember him saying to me a few years ago, Johnny, you know, a lot of people beat yourself up, but he said something quite refreshing, which was, do you know, I think I squeezed every last drop out of my talent. I think I reached my level. That was my level. So doesn't beat himself up, missing out on Wimbledon. He was saying he knows how good he was. There were quite a few more talented players than him. You and I both know the world is full of wasted talent. Talent alone isn't enough, is it? It's the same in Formula One.
Yeah, no, it's not. Talent is not enough. No, there is so much more needed. This mental game that needs to be really sort of achieved when you're in the cockpit. But of course, it also works when you're working within a team as well. I think Michael Schumacher, bless him, was always the one that sort of changed the dynamic of Formula One, because he got everybody in the team around him to work for Michael Schumacher. He didn't care about his teammate at all. And I think that is where he was able to achieve all those championships. And hopefully Lewis is going to get that one this year, which will equal those 7 that Michael got.
Well, we're going to talk about that in a second. Right, question 9, football. Where does Sadio Mane originate from? The answer is Senegal. He's Senegalese, and that's worth 1 point. And the final question in this first half of the sports quiz with the stars with Johnny Herbert. Johnny, your question and answer.
Yeah, which is the track names. Can you name the 3 famous track names for the Portuguese, Brazilian and San Marino Grand Prix, which is worth 3 points? And the answers are Estoril in Portugal, Interlagos in Brazil, and Imola in San Marino.
You like those 3 circuits?
Yes, I think the Interlagos, bit of altitude, a little bit sort of, dry in the throat, but a brilliant track just because it's got a bit of everything. It's got fast speed, it's got the middle sector where it's quite a tricky technical part of the track, and then the last corner onto the long straight where you need to get the right drive. So you've got to get the right ingredients and balance. And then the one thing that always throws its ugly head in qualifying or the race is the rain. There's always that threat that's always around the circuit. So I think Interlagos is great. Estoril was another one which was great, by the sea. And then Imola, obviously, sort of in the middle of Italy, which was a nice, popular one for many people to go to. But Interlagos. Yeah.
Okay, well, whilst everybody's tossing up their scores so far out of 20, we're going to get on with the other 10 questions in, let's say 10 minutes. But time for a little halftime chat. Johnny, just continuing where we left off, really. Now, you've referred to the crash a few times in 1988. For those with long memories, well, let me first say that Johnny Herbert had a fantastic career in Formula One. But pre that crash, people were getting super excited about you. You weren't there. You really were the proverbial dogs. And then the crash, there's no doubt about it, that the crash and what happened held you back, although it didn't hold you back enough to go on and achieve what you did. But at the time, it was serious, wasn't it? Multiple collisions with barriers. There's even potential amputation at one point, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was, especially on the left one, which got sort of partly taken off, or nearly completely taken off, a little bit of skin, horrible, sort of hanging on. But so, yeah, you're right. I think the week before, I had Enzo Ferrari wanted to talk to me. At the race weekend, I had the crash. Frank Williams was in the paddock, wanting to have a talk to me. Tyrrell interested as well. Benetton, I had a relationship with them as well, and Lotus. So everything was going so well for me. I got pole position. I was leading the race by a long way. It got stopped halfway through, and then on the restart, I got tapped from behind by a Swiss, Gregor Wojtek, which threw me into the barriers and basically ripped off the front of the car, legs hanging out the front, and all the damage was done. And that's all that's left. That's the only bit of the car that is still with me today. So it was.
Why have you still got that? Why have you got that at home?
Well, it holds my door open. So it's just a nice little memento that someone gave me. Adrian Reynard, who was the owner of Reynard, gave it to me. So yeah, so I kept it. It's nice. It's still got my name on the bit they cut from the car. So it's just, again, it's part of my sort of career, my life in motorsport. Wasn't the best sort of time, but you're right. I was able to bounce back to win those three races. But I think at the end of the day, it's something that I wish it hadn't happened, because I think things would have been very, very different, because you spoke earlier on about natural ability. Well, I lost that. It's weird. There was a certain thing I lost, which was really my perception of what goes on in front of you and around you. And I never used to look at anything. I never looked at a bit of grass or a board or a marker or whatever it was to go into the corner. It was all done visually. And after the accident, for whatever reason, that all disappeared. And then I had to look at things on the circuit, bit of dark tarmac, and then that was how I braked and turned in. That's not what the Lewis Hamiltons of the world do. They do it purely on this vision, and it's a very, very special thing to have and a very rare thing to have. But it's only the greats that have that ability.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll say this for you because sports people always make excuses, but in your case, it's a fact. You were not racing mentally or physically and 100% of your ability from the point of that crash. So, fair's fair. 161 Grand Prix. In fact, your debut race, which was the following year, so you'd had your legs mangled to oblivion. You make your debut the next year, and you get fourth in Brazil. It wasn't always like that, but to see what you achieved, bearing in mind that the handicaps that you had. I'm sure everybody recognises that in Formula One, and I guess there's no point going back of what ifs. It happened. Move on.
No, it's worth going back on it. For sure. No. It's one of those things that at that particular time, I hadn't made it to F1. There are other drivers that have had accidents. Martin Donnelly had a big crash in Jerez. It was in 1990, a real big one. And that stopped his career. So he only had sort of less than a season in Formula One. So I got there. I had a contract, as I said, with Benetton. So the light, the tunnel, the light was always there. So I knew I had something that I could sort of still achieve that dream of getting to Formula One. And luckily, I dug deep and I was able to get myself, in a position. I was carried to the car before the race to actually sort of, set off before the start. But it was the determination and that sort of, mental strength, I suppose, of wanting it so badly that it finally sort of came to me that I got on the grid, but then was able to, unbelievably, even still today for myself, thinking back, finish fourth, because that made my career. Because I had two options. One option was to go away, go and race in Japan or somewhere, a couple of years, come back and then sort of go, I'm back. But things move so quickly in Formula One. The next drivers would have come along and then I would have sort of come back and said, hey, I'm here. And they probably wouldn't have touched me with a barge pole because the next guys are there. Where's he been? Last time I saw him, he had his feet hanging off. So I'm glad I did it the way I did it. Yeah.
Now, 1995, what a year that was. You racing for Benetton and you finished fourth in the Drivers' Championship, and that includes winning the British Grand Prix. Now, I'd guess if you could only win two Grand Prix ever, one would be the British and probably Monaco, being the jewels in the crown. But for a British racing driver, especially what's happened to you as well, tell us what it was like crossing. I think you had a little bit of help, didn't you? I think Michael and Damon had a bit of a coming together, but who cares? How did it feel for you seeing the checkered flag, Silverstone going crazy, and you winning the British Grand Prix?
Yeah, well, that's having a good friend. And that good friend was Damon Hill, who crashed into Michael Schumacher. So again, Damon, thank you very much for doing that. He always brings it up. It makes it more special because obviously the history you have of Formula One at Silverstone, hosting the very first Grand Prix itself. And then, of course, coming through when I was doing Formula 4 with Damon and with Bertrand Gachot, who got to Formula 1, Mark Blundell, for example, Martin Donnelly. We did Formula 4, then we did Formula 4 2000, Formula 3, Formula 3000, and Formula 1. So it had been our home for, those sort of 4 or 5 years on that journey to Formula 1. Then it's the British Grand Prix. Then you're in that position to possibly win that Grand Prix. And then you actually win it. But you're right, Ian. When I did the last couple of laps, it wasn't so much looking at the fans around the circuit and sort of thinking, this is just going to be one of the best days ever. Of course, it was going to be. It was all about the journey to get there. The sort of the difficulties after the accident, the pain I had to go through, the sacrifices that I had to do as well with my family, and then get myself in this position to win the British Grand Prix. It was a brilliant. I could enjoy the last lap those fans and those British, Union Jacks being sort of around the circuit. So it was, just a brilliant.
Emotional?
Grand Prix win. Of course, yes. But a double emotional. Emotional because of that sort of, as I said, coming back and getting back into a race car itself, and then actually sort of winning your first Grand Prix at Silverstone. So brilliant memories. It's a wonderful thing when you sort of are able to achieve that dream, whatever sport it may be. And I was very fortunate Silverstone was the first one, the home Grand Prix.
Very quickly, Michael Schumacher was your teammate during those Benetton times. Now, statistically, he's the greatest racing driver of all time.
Yeah.
But anybody who knows anything about F1, and this is why he's statistically the greatest driver of all time, he probably wasn't the best teammate. He didn't care too much for his teammate. What was it like being his teammate and pretty much being told by everybody, you're the number two?
Yeah, well, I think he's got the reputation of being, the hard marker Schumacher. And that was definitely the case. But I think the main thing is he had a great sense of humor. He was a hard worker, I have to say. I mentioned it a little bit earlier on about sort of, the modern generation, and the difference is where he was able to get Ross Brawn, Rory Byrne, who was designing the car, and probably the most important one for him was Flavio Briatore, who was giving him everything that he needed. Unfortunately for Flavio, he forgot about me. I was off his radar. I look back now and I sort of understand it, but of course, in the position you are at that time, number two, like you said, Ian, it makes it that much harder because I haven't got anyone around me. Michael's got everyone around him, but I can't take away of what he did at that time and what he did later on and what he achieved, because that's how he achieved that, immense amount of race wins and world championships. So, but he had to have the right people and the right ingredients that he had at Benetton. And then latterly he had with Jean Todt, with Ross Brawn, Rory Byrne as well. When he went to Ferrari, he had to have all the right ingredients to turn around quite a chaotic Ferrari when he joined to a championship winning team.
And we're all still hoping for some kind of a miracle, obviously, with Michael. Final part of this chat. It's a pub question, and it's simply, you've been around the sport for a long time, racing in it, obviously been part of it ever since. Who in your book is the greatest? Now, define greatest. Is it statistically? It's Schumacher. Some would argue, well, Lewis has got to be up there. Some might say someone like Fangio, when no seatbelts, there were loads were being killed. A lot of people say, forget about how many titles, it was Senna. What would be your answer?
Well, I've always been Senna because I came through karting with him. He then sort of went off into his Formula One journey. I joined about 4 or 5 years later. But Ayrton was able to get everything from qualifying, everything from a race, being it wet or dry, no matter what condition you threw at him. He was always able to get a result out of himself and out of the car. Then, like you said, you go back to Fangio, and everything that he did in those very, very dangerous cars, to someone like Jackie Stewart, who went through those awful years of, losing a friend more or less every single Grand Prix, or every time they stepped in a car, with the accidents that happened in those days. Safety has changed massively, and we're in a very good situation at the moment, but it's still something that is still dangerous, come what may. But the man that I have a lot of respect for, just because of what he does in a race car, again, in a very similar vein to Ayrton, is Lewis. Because I think Lewis's ability in this more, social media world that we live in, there's more press, there's more TV, there's a lot more everything going on. And you've got to sort of take all that on board, then put a helmet on, get in a car and get that result done. Lewis is unbelievable to me because he does it every single time. And Ayrton used to do the same thing. Most of if not all, the world champions were always able to dig deep to get that extra something from themselves. But I get excited when I watch Lewis, and I think that's very important, is to get excited, as I have seen with even watching Niki Lauda sort of back in the 70s, watching it on a DVD or even streaming it. So yeah, Lewis for me, I think will always be the greatest, I think, down the line, that's for sure. But prior to that, as we are at the moment, Ayrton, yeah.
Yeah, well, if he keeps his hunger the world's is living, isn't it? For Lewis, just go on and on and on, can't he?
Yeah, he's very hungry for it, and that's what I love about him. He's been in it so long now, but he still has that hunger to try and achieve the race win this year for the 7. But he wants to go beyond that, and I think that's what I love about him. He's got this real hunger, which I think a lot of people should take on board, whatever journey they're on. If it's sport or a normal business world that you live in, you know, take that hunger. It can take you a long way.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, Johnny, thanks for that. Let's get back to the quiz. If everybody's poised, I'm going to get started with question 11. It's rugby. The Lions, of course, British and Irish Lions, are playing in South Africa next summer. The last time they played in South Africa was 2009. This question is worth 2 points. Who was the captain of the Lions in 2009? And what was the series score? For the 3 test matches, what was the series score? Okay. Question 12, Johnny.
Sorry, just taking the power out of my computer. Right, okay. So Johnny Herbert, very good-looking guy, very nice gentleman, and he's the most popular man in the paddock even today. That's me. He won.
I'm not sure I wrote that when I said that to you, but anyway, carry on.
No, I added all onto that, Ian. Don't worry about that.
All right.
Yeah, it does go on actually more if you want me to continue. So I won 3 F1 Grand Prix. Can you name the 2 circuits where I achieved these feats? Worth 2 points.
There we go. Right.
So there's 3 wins, but can you name 2?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, Nick can name 2 of the 3 circuits where you won your 3 Grand Prix. Right. My turn. Question 13. A cricket question. England play the West Indies tomorrow. Test series starts. And the greatest, we're talking about greatest F1 drivers, the greatest West Indian batsman in terms of runs scored was Brian Lara. Big argument for saying he's the greatest West Indian cricketer anyway. But can you name 3 of the next 4 in the list? They're all famous. Can you name 3 of the next 4 in the list of all-time greatest scorers in West Indian cricket? And that is worth 3 points. Question 14, over to you, Johnny.
Okay, cycling, which I've been doing a lot of in this lockdown. I think I am ready for the Tour de France. So can you name all 3 GB Tour de France winners? And that's worth 3 points.
And were you into cycling before lockdown? Were you quite into it, watching it or doing it?
I was doing it, but I was just doing it sporadically. And then since the lockdown, I sort of been able to do a lot more of it. I'm thoroughly enjoying doing it, and because it's more healthy for me, especially for my feet. I'm actually really loving it. I've got a new bike with some nice sort of aero wheels on it, electronics gearbox on it as well. So really looking forward to getting out again. The weather turned a bit sour today, so I haven't been out today.
They are serious sports people, aren't they? These boys doing the Tour de France. I mean, talk about the pain barrier every day.
Yeah, well, I do a little hill around my Stratford-upon-Avon, where I'm based. And I get up there and I'm sort of huffing and puffing, but they go up for thousands of meters and they seem to get up there, and within about 5 minutes, their heart rate's back to normal. It's absolutely unbelievable what they do in that long sort of Tour de France time.
Yeah, no, it is incredible. Okay, question 15. It's a football question. We've been talking about the Brazilian Grand Prix, and we've been talking about Interlagos, home of the Brazilian Grand Prix in Sao Paulo. So the question is, Sao Paulo has 3 top flight teams in Brazilian football. Can you name 2 of them? So 3 famous Brazilian football clubs based in Sao Paulo. Can you name 2 of them? All right. Question 16, Johnny.
Okay. Ferrari are the most successful constructors in F1 history with 238 Grand Prix wins. Name 2 of the next 3. And that's worth 2 points. So name 2 of the next 3 constructors.
There we go. Okay. Question, what am I on? Question 17. Yeah. Question 17. Bit of horse racing for you. The St. Leger is one of the main races during the horse racing season, the flat season. Can you tell us where it is staged? Which race course is the St. Leger staged at? Into the horses?
No.
No?
Shergar. That's it.
Shergar?
Shergar, Leicester Piggott.
Yeah.
Now I'm starting to struggle. No,
Brilliant. All right.
no, I'm not into horse racing at all. No.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for that expert opinion on horse racing there.
No. I went to the Melbourne Cup many years ago when I was with Mika Hakkinen at Lotus, and I couldn't believe how quiet it was, because they came past. It was all the hooves and it was all thud, thud, thud. And as they went around the back, it just went silent, totally silent. And I thought, no. So I've never got into that.
Do you know what? I'm not massively to the horses, but one thing I will say, you see what AP McCoy did? He won 20 back-to-back champions. He's ridden tens of thousands of races. He's fallen off, because you do, hundreds of times. He's had every possible injury. You're talking about hunger before.
Yeah.
The mark of any great sports person in any sport is hunger, isn't it? Yeah. And you've got to doff the cap to AP McCoy to do what he did for 20 seasons. Wow. And it's so dangerous, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yes. Yeah. Those things, what are they, half a ton? Yeah, that's a big thing. If it falls on you, it's gonna hurt. So yeah. And good on you.
A little bit like an F1 car landed on you as well.
Yes, yeah, which does happen for, sort of, luckily not too often, but it can, yes. But they're a little bit lighter than half a ton, that's for sure. Right.
All right, your turn. Question 18.
That's 18. Right, Olympics. So, who is Team GB's most successful track and field star? And how many gold medals has this athlete won? And that's worth 2 points.
There we go. Okay, question 19. It's a football one, and the question is, so Manchester United, surprise, surprise, are the most successful team in the history of the Premier League, which began in 1992. They've won the Premier League 13 times, which is some going. Can you name the second most successful team in terms of league titles, and how many has this team won? So that's worth 2 points. Who's the team and how many titles have they won? Man United won 13. Who's next and how many? And so we come to the final question of the quiz, and you have the honor, sir, of asking it.
Yeah, let's go back to F1. Right. 2 Australians have won the F1 World Drivers' Championship. Name them. So that's worth 2 points. So 2 Australian world champions, name them.
I've got a story about one of them, which I shall share with you in a moment. Just whilst people are writing down the final answers, etc., just give them a few more seconds before we get going with the answers. So, yeah, I mean, Johnny, you looking back over your career, you'll take it, won't you? You're more than, I mean, number one, for start, if you're racing, you're one of the top drivers in the world. Brilliant. Congratulations for making the grid. But sadly, even that isn't enough, is it? Because there's the hundreds of drivers who appeared a few times, won a few points, and kind of disappeared off the face of the earth. You had a long career in Formula One. You were hampered by your crash and your injuries, but nonetheless, you had a long career. Oh, and by the way, it's lovely to see you here alive, because I know it got a lot safer, but boy, was it dangerous for a while.
Yeah, it was. And, the way the technology changed, I mentioned about sort of the Jackie Stewart era, it was just made by conduit or sort of steel framing. And when they hit something, it just folded up. Then aluminium sort of came on the scene, but you had the same problem with that. It was stiffer and stronger. But when you hit something, of course, aluminium is actually quite soft. So again, they sort of squashed up and damaged people's legs and people lost their lives as well. And then carbon fiber came into sort of the Formula One paddock, and that is the one that is much more absorbing of the energy when you have a crash, and that's why people sort of walk out of these massive crashes that they have nowadays. We lost Jules Bianchi, unfortunately, in Japan a couple of years back, but that was just circumstances. It could have anything have been done. It was one of those really awful instances that I don't think there was anything that could have been done. But the safety has changed a lot, and I'm glad it has been that way. But the essence of driving hasn't changed. That's still there as well. It's still driving between the curbs and the white lines.
You mentioned Jackie Stewart, by the way. We have him penciled in for a sporting club lunch in the city, November the 18th. I say penciled because we still need to discover exactly how the F1 seasons going to pan out. But Jackie, as you well know, he doesn't waste a word, does he? Every word counts. He's very, very polished. Yeah. I'll tell you a quick story about Jackie before we give the answers, because I hope he forgets this. I once interviewed him at the Howard Hotel in London, and he was then going off to number 10 to see Tony Blair, who was the Prime Minister at the time. And we bought some tea and I think there were just a few snacks. It was a very early evening. And I'd finished what I did, and I ordered it all. And I just got up and said, "Great to see you, better go," and went. And halfway home, I suddenly realised I hadn't actually paid for all the stuff that I'd ordered. And I thought nothing more of it. And then the next morning, I phoned up, I think Helen was his PA, and she was laughing her head off. And I said, "What, why are you laughing?" She goes, "Oh, you'll never guess what happened. You didn't pay. So they asked Jackie to pay, and Jackie didn't have any money on him. So they wouldn't let him go. So he then sent his driver driving around London to find a hole in the wall, and he was late to see Tony Blair. And imagine Jackie Stewart was the most polished professional ever. And he was late to see the Prime Minister because I basically did a runner on him.
Good on you.
Anyway. She was laughing, so I don't think the damage was permanent.
No, it isn't. Jackie Stewart, the name, but of course, then there's the Scotsman in him, so that probably did probably the biggest part of it. But yeah, brilliant character. Really enjoyed my time racing for him for the first season when it was Stewart Grand Prix. Then it turned to Jaguar. But yeah, a wonderful character. And on that evening, you won't get a word in edgeways, Ian.
No, well, that's good. He'll be brilliant. And he got vilified at the time, but a lot of, like yourself, a lot of drivers have got to thank Jackie, because he stood up and said, I can't keep going to funerals of my friends. And he got vilified. Do you remember he got vilified at the time for wanting it to be safer? But thank goodness he did, because it was ridiculous. He said that they used to sort of take a photo of all the drivers on the grid at the start of the year. And by the end, 3 or 4 would be gone.
Oh, yeah, minimum. Yeah. So, yeah, scary times. But it just shows that mindset that the drivers had in those days. Although they knew that could happen to them, they were still willing to push themselves to those limits. And Jackie was probably slightly different to most, because he would go as slowly as he could, but to win. And that was where he was very, very clever. And that's why he won those 3 world championships.
Yeah, he did okay, didn't he? Right, we better give the answers to these questions. So question 11 was the Lions are going to South Africa next year. When was the last time they played? It was 2009. So the questions were, who was the captain of the Lions in 2009? And what was the series score? Well, the captain was Ireland's Paul O'Connell. And the series score was 2-1 South Africa. But honestly, you could barely split the two teams. It was an epic series, and I reckon they're world champions South Africa, of course. They beat England in the final in November, so I think it's going to be an epic series next summer as well. Question 12.
Okay, right. So it was a 1-3 Grand Prix. So it was, can you name 2 circuits where I achieved these feats? Now you've put answers down as Silverstone and Nürburgring, but there is Monza as well. Yeah.
Monza, obviously, another famous circuit. And actually the Nürburgring, I mean, because it's got to be the longest, doesn't it?
Well, that's the Nordschleife. We don't race on the Nordschleife. We've got the small Grand Prix circuit.
Did you ever do the Nordschleife?
I've done a VW Scirocco with Mark Blundell. So we did a 24-hour race. And I have to say, it was probably, as Jackie Stewart has named it, it was hell on earth. He named it the Green Hell. And it is hell on earth. It is just epic. It goes on and on and on and on. And you think you've learned it. And then you get to a certain corner and you say, right, it's left here. And then you end up, it's right. And it's unbelievable. But back in the day, in Jackie Stewart's days, guys that hadn't raced there used to turn up for a practice, qualify and race. But there was only about 14 laps, something like that, 12 or 14 laps. So it was unbelievable track. But the small Grand Prix circuit's nice. And the Nordschleife is just across the road. Lovely place. Yeah. Shame we don't go back.
So question 13 was my interest cricket. England play the West Indies tomorrow. Brian Lara has scored the most test runs for the West Indies. Can you name 3 of the next 4? Next, actually, Shiv Chanderpaul with the weird sideways on stance. Then it's the Master, Viv Richards. Then it's the Masters, Gary Sobers, and then it's Gordon Greenidge. So if you've named 3 out of Chanderpaul, Richards, Sobers, and Greenidge, you get 3 points. If you name 2, you get 2 points. If you get 1, you've worked it out. Question 14, Johnny.
Yeah, the cycling Tour de France, the 3 GB winners. Who are they? Well, Bradley Wiggins, of course, Chris Froome, and Geraint Thomas. There's yours.
There we go.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny that we didn't do things like win the Tour de France, did we? And then since 2012, only one other person's won it, apart from Brits. Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy and brilliant, and it's, they're still very strong at the present time. So it'd be interesting once that gets going again. Can they keep going for GB?
Well, you got to think Froome and Thomas will both be very, very much in the mix for that. Definitely. Okay, question 15, a football question. It was, can you name 2 of the 3 Premier League or Serie A, as they call them, football teams in Sao Paulo? Well, one's easy because it's Sao Paulo. But the other 2 are pretty famous teams, Corinthians, and the other team is Palmeiras. So Palmeiras, Corinthians, and Sao Paulo. 2 of those, and you got yourself 2 points. Johnny.
Right. So Ferrari, most successful constructor with 238 wins. The next 3 constructors are McLaren on 182, Williams on 114, and Mercedes, unbelievable, in a short space of time, 102 Grand Prix wins.
There we go. Now, I hate to point this out, but you didn't race for any of those. But is it fair to say that if you are a Formula One driver, if there's one team you would like to say you drove for at some point in your career, it's still Ferrari?
For me personally, no. I think the one I always loved because of the way they went about their racing, Patrick Head, Frank Williams Grand Prix. So yeah, Ferrari, I've always got that, but I think as a racing driver, I think you go where you're going to be able to achieve. And there are the years that Ferrari haven't achieved, they've underachieved. And that's where I think you don't just go there for the sake of it. You go there if it's the right time. Yeah.
And it hasn't been for quite a while.
No.
Okay, question 17, horse racing. Where is the St. Leger stage? The answer, of course, is Doncaster. Doncaster is where the St. Leger is staged. Question 18, Johnny.
Yeah, Olympics, Team GB's most successful track and field star. How many gold medals has this athlete won? Answer, Mo Farah. 4 gold medals.
Yeah, back-to-back, 2012 to 2016. Yes. Okay, question 19, which is mine. Premier League. You'll like this one. So Man United are the most successful team in the history of the Premier League with 13 Premier League titles. Which team has come second and how many titles have they won? It's not Man City. It's definitely not Liverpool. They've only won it once in the Premier League. It's not even Arsenal have won it a few times. Yes, it's the Blues of the King's Road, Chelsea, 5 titles. Did you know that, Johnny?
I didn't know that. I knew they'd won a good few in the good days that did come our way. So now I'm much more wiser. Yeah. They're and you know what? They're looking strong again. They've got some great kids coming up. So exactly. I think they think they're going to be a force again. Yeah. Okay, final question of the night, Johnny, as we reach the final bend of the final lap of the race. Indeed. Hopefully an easier one. Right. So 2 Australians have won the F1 World Championship. Drivers, that is. Name them. And of course, Sir Jack Brabham and the great Alan Jones. No, he's a character. You talk about characters, that is a proper one. Alan Jones, absolutely bundle of fun. Loves his amber nectar, indeed. And
I had the pleasure of meeting Sir Jack Brabham, and they told me. In fact, he told me himself. He had what do you call it?
Well, his eye. He was deaf in that ear completely, but he had the ear aid. Yeah.
Yes, he did. But when he started getting bored, he used to turn it off. So if you saw it, turn it off in your company. You knew that was it. You knew he'd had enough. Johnny, we've run out of time.
Oh, dear.
I told you that hour would fly by, didn't I?
Yes, he did, yes. Having fun.
There we go. So I hope everybody at home has enjoyed themselves. I always think out of 40 marks, if you got something between 25 and 30, that sounds about right. So it's not too hard, but we don't want to make it too easy either. So I hope everybody's enjoyed it. I hope everybody's enjoyed Johnny's company as much as I have. Johnny, you've been an absolute star. Hope you've enjoyed yourself tonight.
That's been good, Ian. Thanks for having me on, and hopefully everybody's had a good evening as well, having a listen to us both.
And let's not forget as well, everybody, please check out Kidney Research UK. Yeah. If you got a few pennies, a few pounds, now more than ever, because, you know, charities have been hit pretty hard. So do dig deep if you can for Kidney Research UK. Check them out on their website, and any donation really, really helps. So, Johnny, what's happening with you now? Are you obviously looking forward again to the weekend, the round 2 back in Austria? Are you involved in the Sky production here for this?
Not for this one, no, because obviously everyone's been in sort of lockdown while they're there. So I join for Hungary for next week. So what am I looking forward to this week? Obviously, is the qualifying coming up on Saturday, race on Sunday. But I'm actually having my COVID test on Saturday, my first one. So I'm having a lot of sort of, things in my throat and up my nose. And then I have a second one on Monday. So I have a day to get over the first one. And then I get checked when I get to Hungary as well.
Oh, I see. So you have to have all of that in order to get to Hungary.
To get to Hungary, to be able to get into the little sort of F1 world, yes. So.
Oh, I see.
All right. Well, heard it's good fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. Yeah. Listen, I had my prostate checked, and trust me, you don't want to do that. Whenever I see anybody wearing marigold gloves, I'd come out in the sweats. Anyway, that's for another time. Johnny, thanks so much for joining. Don't do that. Yeah. Johnny, thanks so much for joining us. You're an absolute star, and we'll hopefully catch up with you very soon.
Yeah, definitely so. Cheers, everyone.
All right. Take care.
Cheers. Cheers.
So that was Johnny Herbert, everybody. What a great guy he is. What a great star. Brilliant fun. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Don't forget, in a couple of weeks' time, we've got the greatest Winter Olympian of all time, Lizzie Yarnold, joining us, the only person ever to have won 2 Winter Olympic gold medals. Great fun. She did a sporting lunch with us a couple of years ago. She slipped a disc. She couldn't sit down, and yet she still rocked up, and she stood for the whole lunch and just went around all the tables, shaking hands and saying hello. So she's absolutely brilliant. So I hope you enjoyed tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you again very, very soon. Do still stay safe. We're not out of the woods yet. Keep well, and we'll see you again very, very soon. Thanks again, and good night.